Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the dramatic final act of one of history's most infamous rulers, the Roman Emperor Nero. His story is a chilling reminder of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely, and how even the most feared tyrant can meet a sudden, spectacular downfall. Nero's reign began with promise. Guided by his mentor Seneca, the young emperor was initially seen as a breath of fresh air. But this golden age was short-lived. Over time, Nero's paranoia, extravagance, and hunger for adulation spiraled out of control. He saw conspiracies in every shadow and rivals in his own family. His relationship with his mother, Agrippina the Younger, a woman of immense ambition who had schemed to put him on the throne, soured completely. In a shocking act that horrified Rome, he arranged her assassination. He also disposed of his first wife, Octavia, to marry his mistress, Poppaea Sabina, whose own life would later end under mysterious and violent circumstances. The turning point for many Romans was the Great Fire of 64 AD. A massive blaze devastated the city. For over a week, leaving vast swathes of Rome in smoldering ruins. While Nero was away from the city when it started, rumors quickly spread that he had orchestrated the fire himself, perhaps to clear land for his ambitious new palace, the Domus Aurea, or Golden House. The historian Tacitus famously wrote that Nero fiddled while Rome burned, a phrase that has echoed through the centuries, symbolizing his detachment and callousness. Whether he started the fire or not, Nero needed a scapegoat to deflect the public's fury. He found one in a small, misunderstood religious sect, the Christians. He launched a brutal persecution, accusing them of hatred of the human race. This marked one of the first major state-sponsored persecutions of Christians, setting a grim precedent. But even this horrific distraction couldn't save his reputation. Public's trust was shattered, and the seeds of rebellion were sown. While the common people of Rome grew resentful, the real threat to Nero's power was brewing within the empire's military and political elite. His erratic behavior and disrespect for Roman traditions had alienated the Senate. His constant demands for money to fund his lavish lifestyle and grandiose building projects were draining the treasury and burdening the provinces. He fancied himself a great artist, a poet, a singer, and a charioteer, forcing senators and nobles to attend his lengthy, often mediocre, performances. This was a profound insult to the Roman aristocracy, who saw such activities as beneath the dignity of an emperor. The first major crack in his authority appeared in 65 AD with the Personian conspiracy, a plot involving numerous prominent senators and equestrians who aimed to assassinate Nero and replace him. The plot was discovered, and Nero's response was swift and merciless. A wave of executions and forced suicides followed, wiping out many of his perceived enemies, including his former mentor, Seneca. But this bloody purge only fueled more fear and hatred. Nero was creating more enemies than he was eliminating. The final, fatal wave of rebellion began in the provinces. In March of 68 AD, Gaius Julius Vindex, the governor of Gallia Lugdunensis, modern-day France, rose up in open revolt. Vindex denounced Nero's tyranny and his taxation policies. While Vindex himself was not a contender for the throne, he threw his support behind another powerful governor, Servius Sulpicius Galba, who commanded legions in Hispania or Spain. At first, Nero dismissed the revolt, joking that he would simply confiscate Vindex's property. But when he learned that Galba had joined the rebellion and was being hailed as emperor by his own troops, the gravity of the situation finally hit him. Panic began to set in. The situation worsened when the legions in Germania, commanded by Virginius Rufus, marched against Vindex. Although they crushed Vindex's forces, they too refused to renew their oath of loyalty to Nero. The army, the very foundation of an emperor's power, was abandoning him. Back in Rome, the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's elite bodyguards, were the last line of defense. But their commander, Nymphidius Sabinus, saw an opportunity. He was promised a huge sum of money to switch his allegiance to Galba. He convinced the guards that Nero had already fled the city, and in a decisive move, the Praetorian Guard declared their support for Galba. With the army and his own guards turned against him, the Senate finally found its courage. They had lived in terror of Nero for years, but now, seeing him isolated and powerless, they acted. On June 8, 68 AD, the Senate officially declared Nero hostis, an enemy of the public. This was a death sentence. It meant that any Roman citizen could legally kill him without trial. The tyrant was now a fugitive. Deserted by all but a handful of his loyal freedmen, Nero fled the palace in disguise. His escape was frantic and pathetic. He wandered the outskirts of Rome, seeking refuge, but all doors were closed to him. He was the most powerful man in the world one day, and a hunted outcast the next. Finally, he found a temporary hiding place in a villa belonging to his freedman, Theon, just a few miles outside the city. As he hid, shivering with fear, he could hear the sounds of horsemen approaching. They were the Senate's men, sent to capture him and bring him back to Rome for a public execution. Knowing his fate was sealed, Nero decided to take his own life. But even in this final act, his nerve failed him. He hesitated, lamenting his fate and famously crying out, "Qualis artifex preo." What an artist dies in me. It was a final, delusional testament to his vanity. He couldn't bring himself to do the deed, and so he had his loyal secretary, Epaphroditus, help him by pushing the dagger into his throat. Just as he lay dying, a centurion burst in, claiming he had come to save him. But it was too late. With his last breath, Nero reportedly gasped, "Too late." This is fidelity. He died on June 9th, 68 AD, at the age of just 30. His death marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the family line that had begun with Augustus. Nero's fall plunged Rome into chaos. The year that followed, known as the Year of the Four Emperors, was a bloody civil war as Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and finally Vespasian fought for control. It was a stark lesson in the instability that follows the collapse of a tyranny, the story of. Nero's downfall is more than just a historical account. It's a timeless drama about power, fear, and rebellion. It shows how a regime built on terror and extravagance is ultimately fragile, and how the tide of public opinion and military loyalty can turn with shocking speed. The tyrant who believed himself a god died a coward's death in a dusty villa, a dramatic end to a reign of fire and blood. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's most compelling moments. Let us know in the comments which historical figure you'd like to see us cover next. Until next time, stay curious.